So, hey, Monkey Bone here. Welcome to my channel and my very first video. So today, Mr. Frank Turek of Cross-Examined has 4 questions which he believes that the answers to are yes, and also which make Christianity true. Now let's see if I get 4 yes answers. Shall we? All right, let's go. Whoa, that's loud.
The reason that we believe Christianity is true is because the answer to 4 questions is yes.
Okay. It's not that Christianity is true, it's the reason he believes it's true. And I'm sure he can believe that all he'd like. Does truth exist? Well, Frankie, baby, what do you mean by truth? If you mean truth as in the fundamental reality of materialism, like, you know, that atoms exist, that we exist, that we're not in the matrix, we're not a simulation program, you know, I reject all that hard solipsism crap. So yeah, that kind of truth exists. My desk exists, it's true. So does my computer. However, if we're talking about things like religious truth or philosophical truth, or dare I say personal truth, then, you know, that's a bit more subjective. But let's see how he handles this. Let's see if he even defines what truth is.
How about the first question? Does truth exist? Obviously, you hear people say all the time, there is no truth, or you got your truth, I got my truth, all truth is relative.
You've got your truth, I've got my truth. I think what they're saying there is, I got my beliefs, which I believe are true. You have your beliefs, which you believe are true. There's for, you know, whatever. What was the other question? There is no truth. I don't know anybody who says there is no truth. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that do that, but I've never run into one. Have you? Do you know somebody who says there is no truth? All truth is relative. That's a sticky one. I don't know. Is truth relative? I mean, it's personal in a way. You know, like, it's true that I like to not see pineapple on my pizza. Yeah, it's true for me. I don't like pineapple on my pizza. Is that true for you? Is that true for Frank? Who knows? So, no, Frank.
You got your truth, I got my truth, all truth is relative. When somebody says there is no truth, you ought to ask that person a question. You ought to say, is that true?
That's not half as clever as Frank thinks it is. That's just idiotic, because first of all, it's an idiotic response to a question that's a statement that's never stated. That's just dumb, Frank. I can't believe you're that dumb.
Is it true that there's no truth? Because if it's true that there's no truth, the claim there is no truth can't be true, but it claims to be true. In other words, it's a self-defeating claim. Of course there's truth.
Oh my God. That doesn't exist. So basically, is there truth? Yada, yada, yada. There's truth. Truth exists. No reason, no definition, no explanation. And the atheist couldn't be right that there was no God. Most atheists you're going to run into are going to tell you that they don't know if God exists 100%. But the probability that God exists is low enough that they dismiss the idea entirely. The claims aren't there. But, I mean, like anything, we can't dismiss it out of hand. But just like gravity might, you know, change tomorrow, the sun may not come up tomorrow. But what is the probability that gravity will change or the sun will not come up tomorrow? It's going to be vanishingly small and not even something to worry about. So, getting it wrong again, Frank. I mean, and we're only on question 1.
If there was no truth, an atheist couldn't be right that there was no God. So there is truth. Question number 2, does God exist?
The concept of God exists, for sure. Many different ones, obviously, through the ages and now. Thousands of gods, from Set to, I don't know, Marduk or Yahweh or Thor. So, several arguments for the existence of God. Let's hear him out. See if he actually gives some actual reasons this time instead of just, is there truth? Yada, 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 yada. Yeah, there's truth.
There are several arguments for the existence of God. Let me just give you one.
Just one, huh? I'm hoping this is the best one that he's got. Okay.
Even atheists today are admitting that space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing.
Wrong. First of all, why are you asking atheists about the beginning of cosmology in our universe? Why don't you ask a cosmologist or an astrophysicist? They might, have a better understanding than your average atheist dude or gal. Also, no, they're not. Atheists are not saying that stuff came into existence, time, space, and matter came into existence out of nothing. We don't know. That's a big I don't know, or we don't know. We can get down to the Planck time, like trillions of a second after the Big Bang. But we can't get any further to it because our physics kind of breaks down at that point. So, no, atheists may be saying it, a few, but they'll be wrong. Time, space, and matter did not come from nothing. And I think this is the cosmological argument. Okay, whatever, Frank. Let's see what you got.
Well, think about this, friends. If space, matter, and time had a beginning out of nothing,
it didn't.
Whatever created space, matter, and time can't be made of space, matter, and time.
How do you know that? You're assuming it came out of nothing, which isn't true. But how do you know? How do you know that, Frank? Please, enlighten.
Now, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause.
So, I can get behind spaceless, timeless, immaterial if it's outside of space, time, and matter. But why powerful? Just one little extra drop of water can cause a whole landslide. Personal? No. Intelligent? No. I mean, there's a lot of extremely huge events that occur within our universe that are not personal or intelligent, and many of them aren't even powerful. They're just, that proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. It was just one ounce too many on the pile, and it causes a huge thing. Think of Jenga. You got a huge tower of wooden blocks, and one tiny little bump or fraction, not intelligent, not powerful, not personal, not intelligent, and the whole thing comes crashing down, right? So, who do I think of? I think of something that doesn't exist. Because if it's outside of space, doesn't exist in time, and does not have any kind of matter, which also includes energy, I might add, then that's something that doesn't exist.
Who do you think of? God. Now, we don't know it's the Christian God at this point, but we know it's a theistic God.
How do you know it's a theistic God? Maybe it's a deistic God. Maybe it's one of those gods that just kind of, poop the universe into existence. And then, maybe it was a side effect of his belch or something. We don't know. And Frank doesn't know either. He's just making shit up at this time.
Being who's beyond the world, who created the world.
I assume he means world as in the universe and not just Earth. But be more specific, Frank. We need details.
The third question is, are miracles possible?
Are miracles possible? I know I'm stopping a lot, but this is dumb. Are miracles possible? If he means a miracle as defined by most people as in a very low probability event, then yes. Yes, they do. For example, it would be a miracle if I won the Mega Millions or the Powerball lottery, right? My chances of personally winning are vanishingly small, not only because I don't play very often, but because the odds are so not in my favor on that. Yeah, but, you know, you get enough people playing the lottery, and eventually somebody's going to win, right? Because instead of one person having a 1 in a trillion chance, right? Maybe you have 800 million to a trillion. You have a greater opportunity and chance. But if he means miracles as in the supernatural miracles, I don't go in for that.
Obviously, Christianity can't be true if miracles are not possible.
That is true. He made a point that's correct. Holy crap! All right, let's okay, Frank.
But the greatest miracle in the Bible has already occurred, and we have.
Wait, the greatest miracle in the Bible has already. Well, of course, it's already occurred, Frank. I mean, the Bible, you know, the New Testament at least, I'm sure is what he's referring to as the resurrection. That supposedly happened and was written about like 2,000 years ago, give or take. You know, I don't know the exact dates. I think it was within the first 100 years of you know, the supposed death of Jesus that we get all the Gospels and the writings of Paul and those sorts of things. And they have scientific evidence for the resurrection. Ooh, I got to see this.
Scientific evidence for it. What's that? I just mentioned it. The creation of the universe out of nothing. If Genesis 1:1 is true, every other verse in the Bible is at least possible.
I'm flabbergasted and stumped by the dumb. First off, you know, we decided that the universe wasn't created out of nothing, right, Frank? Second off, if Genesis 1:1 is true, then everything else is at least possible. Now, let's think about this. I don't think Genesis 1:1 is true. Therefore, you know, and he hasn't established that. He has not in any way proven that Genesis 1:1 is true. But even if he had, that doesn't mean that every other verse in the Bible is at least possible. Because, think about it this way. If I wrote a book, and the first sentence was, I was born in a small town in America, that would be true. I was born in a small town in America. Does that mean everything else I write after that is true or could be true? No. Each statement has to stand on its own. What if my second sentence was, and then I flew a unicorn? Well, no, my unicorns don't have wings. A Pegasus. Let's go Pegasus. After I write, I was born in a small town in America, and then I got a Pegasus, and I flew to the moon and brought back a lump of green cheese. All right? Just because that first sentence is true and possible has no bearing on whether the second sentence is true and or possible. It does not follow. It doesn't follow, Frank.
Because if there's a being that can create the universe out of nothing, can he do whatever he wants inside the universe? If he can create the whole show out of nothing, of course. He can resurrect Jesus from the dead or walk on water or part the Red Sea. He can do any of that.
Again, each claim, walking on water, raising Jesus, turning water into wine, like I said, walking on water, Red Sea, resurrecting Jesus. Each of those claims has to be taken on its own. They have to stand on their own, Frank. They're not all one big thing together. Man. All right.
So the final question, the fourth question, which gets us all the way to the Christian God is the New Testament reliable enough to show us that Jesus rose from the dead?
Categorically, no. Not at all. In the Bible, I believe, if Paulogia is correct, I love his show, by the way, there are only two people, I think it's Peter and James, were the only two people who ever claimed to see a risen Jesus. Paul apparently saw a vision, a bright light, and a voice on the way to Damascus, but that really doesn't count because that's a light and a voice, not a resurrected Jesus. So, they're going to go. Maybe he's going to go with the 500 supposed witnesses that Paul said, hey, I heard somewhere that somebody said that 500 people saw this whole thing, which is third hand. So yeah, that's not really good evidence. Let's see what his evidence is.
The reason we believe in Christianity is because an event occurred, the resurrection.
You believe an event occurred, the resurrection. You have no evidence of that, or at least none that you've shown me. Told me? Yeah.
Now, I have to ask you this. Why would the Jewish writers of the New Testament, all were Jewish with the exception of Luke, why would they invent a resurrected Jesus?
They didn't. They heard it via the grapevine and believed, say, hey, that sounds like a cool story. I believe that. I believe what you're saying. They don't have to be intentionally making it up. And besides, these are the people, supposedly, who were following Jesus around. They wouldn't invent that. I mean,
Why would they say that a man who claimed to be God rose from the dead if it didn't happen?
Because maybe they thought it did. They could have been wrong, Frank. They could have been mistaken, Frank. They don't have any evidence that what they said.
They thought that would be blasphemy for a man to claim to be God.
All right, here we go. So, the writers of the New Testament were Jewish. That's true. I mean, Jesus was Jewish. Blasphemy for a man to say he's God. Well, these people already believed that, Frank. They believed that he was God. And they invested, apparently, years into believing in him and following him. And, once you're in a cult, it's very hard to get out of one. And I'm going to be frank here, Frank. Think about the MAGA movement and the associated around Donald Trump. And I know I'm going to get heat for that, but I don't care. Once you're in that MAGA, QAnon, conspiracy theory world, it's really hard for you to let that go. Partly because of the sunk cost fallacy. The idea that I put so much into this, I'm so invested in this, I can't just walk away from it. It's so hard to do. It's a human thing.
And why would they invent a resurrected Jesus? They already thought they were God's chosen people. They
didn't. See, he's going with this idea that either it happened or they made it up, which is a dichotomy that is false, right? He could have, like I said, they could have sincerely, honestly believed stuff. Because if we say that it must be true because they totally honestly believed it, then we have to think that, Bigfoot is true. Ghosts, aliens, anal probing from aliens, etc. Although, I gotta say, there is far more evidence for Bigfoot than there is for Jesus. Because at least with Bigfoot, we've got footprints, we've got fibers and hair, we have some videos, some pictures, some audio. What do we have from Jesus? Nothing but some hearsay out of an old book from a few thousand years ago.
They had no motive to invent or resurrect Jesus.
You're assuming they needed a motive. Their motive was they believed it. Whether it was true or not, they believed it, right? That's the motivation is they sincerely believed it and were sincerely wrong.
And certainly they could not have invented it in Jerusalem, where an empty tomb existed.
Did an empty tomb exist? Probably. There's probably a lot of empty tombs in Jerusalem at the time. I mean, I know what he's getting at, the empty tomb. But there is no consensus, scholarly or otherwise, on whether the empty tomb bit was actually a thing. And really, writing 40 years later, 100 years later, from these supposed events, to people who were in, like, not in Jerusalem, right? You know, it's not like they would, like, be able to track down this story. It's not like they could get on their phone and Google it. You know, things were not as information age as they are now. So, yeah, and they probably didn't invent it in Jerusalem, to be sure. I mean, who knows where these were, the New Testament books were written exactly. You know, they don't say written in Jerusalem in 90 AD. They don't. We don't know where exactly they were written. Heck, we don't even know who wrote half of them. Silly, Frank, you're silly.
In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the New Testament writers did not create the resurrection. The resurrection created the New Testament writers.
The belief in the resurrection created the New Testament writers.
There would be no New Testament if it wasn't for the resurrection.
Wasn't for the belief of the resurrection. Again, most of the authors of the New Testament did not see or witness or claim to witness the resurrection.
Now, even if the New Testament never existed, Christianity would still be true.
No. I don't see how that follows.
Why? Because Christianity is based on an event, the resurrection. Do you realize there were thousands of Christians before a line in the New Testament was ever written?
Well, I will give them that. You know, the whole Jesus New Testament thing, resurrection thing, was oral tradition for a few decades before, you know, it started to write things down. I mean, obviously, a lot of the people at the time weren't exactly literate people. They didn't really read and write a whole lot, and parchment or papyrus scrolls, whatever they wrote on, was probably not readily available as paper is today.
Why? Because an event occurred, the resurrection. You have to have more faith to believe it didn't occur than it did.
I think he's going to end almost on that. And he didn't really, he didn't really prove anything or say anything like, it takes more faith to believe it didn't happen than it did. Why? Why, Frank? Because a bunch of ancient people thought and believed it? Or that two people maybe say that they saw something? Again, the 500, not a thing, Frank.
And if God exists, and he does, and can create the universe out of nothing,
you assume that he does,
then he can certainly resurrect Jesus from the dead. That's why we believe in Christianity.
I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. This always strikes me as dumb, because I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Is that them saying that faith is a bad thing? You know? It doesn't take faith to be an atheist. It doesn't take faith to say, I'm not convinced. I don't know, but I'm not convinced. That doesn't take any faith at all, Frank. None at all. And I know that's the title of one of his stupid books, but yeah, anyway, I think that's the end of it. Well, that was a whole bunch of nothing. He had a lot of assertions, a lot of jumping the shark, a lot of non sequiturs. I think, and there's a channel called Low Fruit, and I'll link them below. They call it the Turek trot, as opposed to the Gish Gallop. You know, that the fact that he like throws so much stuff at you so fast. You know, it's for like really intricate and nuanced questions that he runs through in less than 4 minutes, and doesn't answer any of them really. It doesn't, just kind of throws stuff at the wall and hopes you don't, think about it as he's saying it. It's just boom, 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 boom. Anyway, that was my reaction to 4 Reasons Why Christianity is True. See, the title is even wrong. It should be, as he said, 4 Reasons Why We Believe Christianity is True. And believing something is true and something being true, obviously, not the same thing. Anyway, if you liked this video, give it a cheeky like, a happy subscribe, and a funky share. And send me something else to look at. And give me some comments. Tell me what I should look at. Tell me if I'm dumb. Tell me why I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, and I don't think I am, tell me why I'm wrong.